Okay, all right. I just wanted to welcome everybody to the Sykesville Marin Town Council meeting for Monday, November 9th. This meeting is taking place via US Zoom teleconference. In order to give public comment or listen to the meeting, you can call 1-301-715-8592. The meeting ID is 821-1016-6681, and the password is 113134. You'll not be able to enter the meeting until 15 minutes prior, so that is already expired, so you can enter. Once you enter, you will be placed on mute. So our first order of business is our call to order. So with the Pledge of Allegiance and a brief moment of silence, and for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brief moment of silence. Okay. All right. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Please alert the staff that you would like to make a public comment by pressing *9, and that will raise your hand and you will be recognized. So give that a second to see if anybody has raised their hand. Anything, Carrie? Okay. All right, so our first item of business this evening is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from October 26, 2020. The second item is a surplus of vehicles. And the third item is the Municipal Government Works Month proclamation. Any questions, or does anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda?
I don't have any specific requests or questions regarding the surplus of vehicles. Does anyone else feel it necessary to have any more public comment about that before we approve the consent agenda? Okay, I'm good too.
Okay.
Consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and then our announcements. So announcements, next Mayor and Town Council meeting will be on Monday, November 23rd, 2020, and this too will be a Zoom meeting. Due to the Veterans Day holiday, trash pickup regularly scheduled for Wednesday, November 11th will be picked up on Friday, November 13th. Tuesday's pickup and Thursday's pickup of recycling will not be affected. So, as recognized earlier, Derek, thank you for getting out the mobile sign. It probably helped get the word out. We have volunteer opportunities available for the Historic District Commission, Spark, Police Auxiliary, and the Crossing Guard still. So you can email town@sykesville.net for more information about volunteering with the town. And next item of business is the staff updates. So we did have a meeting with the Warfield group. So I don't know, Joe, did you want to take that? And
yeah, sure. And yeah, obviously, Mayor, you can elaborate if I drop everything. But again, we wanted to make sure this was on the agenda. It might even be a regular thing anytime there's any significant communications with the Warfield folks, just to make sure the council is up to speed on everything that's going on with that development. But like the mayor said, we did have a meeting this past Friday on November 6th. But the town was represented obviously by me and Mayor Shaw. Commissioner Ed Rothstein was there representing the county. The developers, of course, were there. And there was also state representation from the Department of Housing and Community Development, actually several members of the Department of Housing and Community Development, including the secretary there, Ken Holt, and then the secretary of the Department of Planning, Rob McCord. So admittedly, we kind of went into this meeting thinking that, we were going to get some specifics about potential changes to what might be proposed there in Warfield, but really it was most of the conversation was spent just kind of going over the project challenges and what the state's role might be in helping solve some of those challenges. So I know the development team is still working on updating several of their economic feasibility and market feasibility studies. So I think they're waiting to see what some of those come back with before they present anything specific. But they also asked the town to make sure that our goals and kind of what we want to see out of Warfield haven't changed either. And I think Mayor Shaw did a very good job of making sure that they understood that the town still wants to make sure that Warfield is going to be that economic hub or one of the economic hubs here in Sykesville. So we wanted to make that message certainly clear, particularly to the state representatives there. So again, no new concepts were discussed. It was largely just conversations about what some of the challenges were that the developers were facing. We expect to get more information from them when some of their studies have been updated. Obviously, with the housing and community development representation that were at this meeting, housing was discussed. However, there was no specific number of housing, where it might go, or what it might look like. There was a lot of conceptual things discussed, but nothing really specific. And again, like I said, we tried to reiterate that we feel it's a very important project for Sykesville, and we want to make sure it continues to be one of the economic hubs here in the town. Mayor, I don't know if you had any other takeaways. Again, there wasn't anything specific discussed at this meeting. It was again more high-level discussions. But if I left anything out, please feel free to elaborate.
Yeah, and I think Joe captured it pretty good. It's early yet, right? So obviously we know that the current PEC, that was approved, they don't feel as feasible to build that out. So, again, I just reiterated, the town's desire really for connectivity, for a live, work, play environment that we had all went into this in the beginning. And then working with the county, trying to work with the county, this project was identified by the county as like one of their key economic development projects. And I want to make sure that stays in play, for a lot of reasons, for not only for the town, but just for, to get funding from them potentially to help us with things that need to be, to incubator space or what have you, just certain things that I hope can happen there someday. So they kind of got an idea of where, just reminding them of what the boxes as a town we would like to check. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back with that is both financially feasible and then hopefully incorporates those things that we want. So, and then I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to make decisions, that ensure that the things we want this time in this revised plan get built. And I had spoke to Joe about, the need. I did forget to mention that to them as one of my priorities, but I think we need to make sure that gets executed first, because we've already been, told now that we need more housing, but I think we as a town, we need to make sure that this time the commercial gets built up front, or at least some mix of that first and gets done, and then the older buildings and things. So we'll see, but this is right now, they got some ideas. They're working on a plan. I think as Joe captured, they're doing studies. And I think that's driving some of how they're going to formulate the plan. And then once we get that, we should be able to move to the next steps, or at least see what they're talking and what they're thinking, and try to get some ideas from that. So that was about it.
Was there any timeline when they were going to get back to us about their plans or the finding of their research?
Nothing specific. I was under the impression that, at least another 30 days was going to be required before we start seeing some of the studies come back. So I'd be surprised if we see anything before, the end of the calendar year.
I'd like to have a conversation with respect to the agreement on the whole, and what the timeline was that we all agreed to with respect to any improvements to any of the historical structures. And I mean, I guess that would require a conversation with our town attorney in a closed session, but I think it would be a good refresher for those of us that were a part of that process and all of the negotiations with the contract and the sale of the property, as well as a good moment for those of us who are new to the council to be brought up to speed on what it was that was part of that PEC plan. And I just feel like we're hanging around in limbo, and I'm not comfortable.
Has there been any, has the community weighed in at all on what they're interested in from the comprehensive plan, Joe? Has anything come up that is different or new, or any different ideas or anything like that from that process?
Specifically as it relates to Warfield, no, there hasn't been. And again, and there really is a reason for that, and it's because, you know, there is an approved plan that's sitting there for that project. The fear has always been, you know, particularly with you know, doing this comprehensive plan process and knowing that, you know, there is, you know, Warfield still hanging out there, or potential changes to Warfield, is we wanted to make sure that we got good comments based on what the overall vision of Sykesville is going to be, and it didn't become just a redesign of Warfield. So we've kind of structured the comprehensive plan discussions that way. Now, that doesn't mean that there haven't been you know, significant interest in making sure that the rest of town has you know, connection to Warfield, and making sure that you know, they're a component to the overall town. You know, if there's something that we feel like Sykesville's missing, that, you know, is there a way that Warfield can help fill some of those gaps? But there hasn't been, you know, specific discussion about uses or what a potential redesign of Warfield would be, or even, you know, any in-depth discussion on what's currently proposed there.
And
Yeah.
when would that
Okay.
process occur? Would that happen after the developer came back with a revised plan? Is that when we would open up for public comment? I'm personally interested in knowing,
Sure.
based on whatever financial restrictions are out there, you know, what the community would feel in reference to what the potential futures, maybe I mean, I don't know if the developer is going to provide a few options or if it's going to be one option.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested in what the community thinks is the right approach, you know, as we move forward, as we kind of weigh what we think is the right thing to do from a council perspective.
Yeah, and I think that the council certainly has a lot of, I don't necessarily want to describe it as leverage, but, you know, the zoning there, you know, is completely under local control. So the council has full control over what the zoning of Warfield ultimately is. You know, right now it's specifically zoned that PEC district. You know, if there was whatever the Warfield team comes back with, we either have to comply with current zoning, and if it doesn't, they would have to come before the council, go through the process of amending the zoning ordinance. That requires, you know, meetings with the planning commission and likely several meetings before council before those changes could actually be implemented. So throughout that process, there would be the ability for public comments and public participation.
And I think it's important, Jeremiah, just so for the council first to see whatever these plans and proposals are, and to see if there's, you know, for us to work through that first, and then, like Joe said, if we can find a way forward through any revisions, then run that through the process, you know, to go through planning, through the public comment periods, and then maybe make some modifications to that. Then I think, you know, it would probably be the best way to handle that.
So I guess one of the reasons I brought up the comprehensive plan is because when I was speaking with the firm that's putting that together, we did talk about Warfield as part of my discussion with them. I'm not sure if other council members did the same, but in having an open dialogue in reference to, you know, what our individual thoughts are in reference to that, when is there an opportunity for us to discuss that amongst ourselves? Do we have to wait for a plan to come forward from the developer? I mean, I don't know what that process looks like necessarily. And I'm interested in knowing what all of your opinions are in reference to what do we think the future over there looks like? Is it the current plan, which has been approved, or is it some modification of that current plan based on the fact that we've heard that there is a somewhere between 20 and $30 million shortfall for rehabilitating those structures?
And so that's the problem, right? So it needs to be financially feasible to the developer, right? So we need to find out, I think we need to find out what they think is financially feasible for them to finally build out, right? And then once we find that out, then we sort of say, okay, we see what you're saying. Now, how do we take our inputs that you're talking about and get them incorporated into this new plan and still get what we want for the town, and also ensure that it's doable, you know, because I think we can talk all day long about what we want there, but if it's not financially feasible, it's never going to happen, you know. So we need to kind of, the economics are driving it right now, you know, so that's kind of, and believe me, I called him out on that. I mean, Joe will tell you, I told him, you know, you guys promised us, you know, this, and Roger said, okay, all right, you know, he took responsibility for making a mistake, right? So, but anyway, so here we are, and we're trying to figure our way forward. I think to Stacy's point, we could meet with Dennis, have a executive session meeting, and just kind of run through the specifics of the contract, you know, from the original agreement, just so everybody can get up to speed with what was in there. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Most of that stuff, I think technically they're in compliance with, you know, because of the time frames. You know, there was pretty liberal time frames in here to get things done. We initially envisioned this project to be a 12-year project, you know, so and they're about what, two and a half years into this, I think. So it's still in theory a little bit early on, but there were some things we were hoping, metrics and points we were hoping to be at a place by now that I'm not sure have all worked out the way they were. But some of those were not really contract. They weren't. And keep in mind, now they're the owners of the property too. So, you know, we have to be respectful of, they're the actual owners of the property. However, we have the PEC that they're supposed to be administering, basically, you know, so.
I guess my ultimate concern, and I respect the fact that we need to hear what will financially work. It just doesn't feel like there's a lot of conversation going on where they are, I mean, maybe I have a different opinion than what was originally planned, you know, hypothetically, or maybe someone else does, or maybe there's a community member that, you know, is like one of those, you know, a really good architect or something. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to be able to leverage the expertise on the council as well as throughout the community to be able to have an open dialogue in reference to, you know, this developer's obviously struggling with what the right approach is. Otherwise, we'd probably already have heard some of the ideas. And I understand that some of it is proprietary. I mean, I've worked on large deals myself in another environment through work. And I get it. There's a lot of back end things that need to happen from the economics of this for this type of a deal. But it's also, we have a lot of expertise within the town, and there's a lot of opinions, certainly on the council. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels a little bit like a catch-22 is all, where it's like they're struggling but we're not kind of coming in. And I'm not saying we need to rescue them. I definitely don't want to have that kind of an approach, but I just like to have a little bit more dialogue in reference to what some of the possibilities are. That's why I'm bringing it up, Mayor.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we will have that dialogue. I think that has to be framed, though, by what's financially feasible, because we had lots of meetings. We had lots of public input. We had a whole planning thing here. We created a book, you know, a pattern book. There were so many things that were done to get to the current PEC.
I attended 38 Historic District Commission meetings.
Right.
Focused on this exact conversation. Yeah. And that's another layer that nobody has probably even thought of just now until I just said those words.
we've absolutely thought about it. And
No. I mean the other members at this table. Like,
Oh, well.
you know, like right now during this conversation, like there's way more to this process of
Yes.
redoing a PEC than, you know, it's just mind boggling to me.
Well, that's
It's
it.
mind boggling.
No, it is and Stacy's right about that. So the secretary, the planning secretary was there, McCord,
Secretary McCord.
meeting as well, and he is in oversees the Maryland Historic Trust. You know, so he was in on this meeting. He is aware of what's going on. That will absolutely be a conversation. So once the council gets an idea of like, okay, we're willing to like put this concept that you're bringing to the next steps, it's going to go to planning, back to HDC for all of these necessary checkpoints again, you know. So I think you're right there. And then public comment, absolutely want to get the public to comment on this. And I think hopefully we'll be able to find some buildable plan, like taking what they think is financially feasible, incorporate things that you're talking about, suggestions, ideas, comments, you know, see what's in all this. We're basically reopening the process to kind of change it to come up with something that's financially workable, you know, because that's the problem. We did all this work and they're saying it's not feasible to build it. So now we're going to have to open it back up, you know.
That's helpful. And thanks, Stacy, for mentioning that, because that's a bit of history that I think is important for Mark and I to know. That I don't know, Mark, how much you were involved with it, but I wasn't super involved. When I got into the planning commission, a lot of decisions had already been made. And so even though I was on the planning commission a couple of years before joining the council. So that's good. I appreciate it. And Mayor, I appreciate that context as well. I think it's important that the public knows that there will be another opportunity to weigh in. I guess my call to the public right now is we need to know your thoughts as we navigate forward. And we're going to have open ears, or at least I will have open ears to whatever thoughts are out there. So thanks.
And I think that's a good idea, is to have a couple of public meetings, you know, once we get to some final plan, and just say, here's what they're proposing now, because we definitely want to have the buy-in of the citizens. Once we come to this next place, I think we need to put that out there and have everybody, you know, I'm a big fan of that, because we don't want to be making these decisions and then everybody pissed off they didn't want that here in Sykesville, you know. And we want to make sure that it's going to work with what we got. And that's part of the conversations I had with them. All along, we've talked about how this ties to our main street, how this, you know, allows for expansion of the town, how connectivity is so important to us for trails, you know, the whole 9 yards, things we all had hoped for in this PEC. So it'll be a process. I mean, it's very early. We haven't seen anything yet. So we're going to wait and see something first. But yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So I understand that this is about economic feasibility, and we all know the world has changed. And by the way, Stacy, I knew it was bad. You told me it was even worse than I thought, and I appreciate that too. But I did expect at least a little something from them. I'm a big fan of incremental development here. I don't expect a grand plan to solve all the world's problems, but showing up with an empty piece of paper is a little beyond the pale. You know, I would at least want them to come up with their first and most economically feasible suggestion, then we can build on that. But all we got is an empty piece of paper.
Do we have a timeline of when they think that they're going to have a proposal for us? Because the past 6 months, there's been requests from the Warfield for us to make decisions upon, and we keep on asking for updates and we're not getting them. So are they giving us some type of time frame of when we're going to have something?
Just generalities right now.
Yeah,
No,
so
there's
to
no
Joe's
specific
point,
timeline.
I think we're looking at probably the first part of the year before they come up with some rollout concept. You know, because I think what they wanted to do, and I think Mark, their housing is going to be expanded in this plan. We don't know how much, but that's part of what the expansion is going to be, is housing and how that fits into everything. So that's going to be, we know that, but we just don't know what it looks like.
And again, for the two newest members, and refreshers for anyone else listening that may already know the answer to this, Joe, the number of units agreed to in the original plan, housing units, was larger than the number of housing units that the developers decided to actually map out on paper for us all to you know, incorporate into the conversation and the development of the plan. So how many less of how many more do they have within what we within what's available?
Current zoning,
Yeah, from a zoning perspective.
I want to say it's either 35 or 36 more units that they could do out there.
Yeah.
And there was no mention of how many of those they were interested in. Just more was the word.
Yes.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's gonna be well above what that's obviously not enough to do what they
Well,
want.
but see, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like,
Right.
that's going to be, that's what people need to understand. That's what the community needs to understand. And
Yep.
that's what they need to weigh in on, are
Absolutely.
those numbers.
Absolutely. No, that's gonna be the entire plan, the crux of it.
Cor-
And I mean,
Correct.
so we're gonna, believe me, I'm on the same page with you. When this thing comes out, this isn't gonna be something that gets jammed down the community's throat. This is gonna be something that rolls out. I think if the council, you know, who knows, right? You might see this and say no right out of the gate. So then everything else won't happen. I mean, you know, so we'll have to see. We're gonna see. That's the, like, Mark's point. We don't know what we don't know and what we don't have in front of us yet. So we might as well. We're in a holding pattern. But I think they're doing some studies. COVID-19 threw them off a little bit. I mean, they were working on this money for. They were trying to get that plan. I'm trying to think of what it was called. It was a sort of a pilot plan. It had a word. Joe might remember, but they were trying to get that money from the state. You remember, what was that thing?
They were basically trying to expand the historic tax credit program so that, you know, they could get additional funding, you know, allocated towards this.
Right. So to Anna's point, they were working on that for a while, but then that got totally sidetracked when the session got shortened and they didn't get enough time to vet that out. And then COVID-19 came up. So now they're quickly switching gears again, but you know, so here we are. So that kind of explains a little bit of the delay, and they're doing these studies. We had a study done, updated. They're doing some studies, economic studies and impact studies and things that are helping them probably come up with this concept. But so that's kind of how it's developing. So once we see this plan, it'll be so much more eye-opening to see, okay, this is the kind of housing they're talking about. This is the amount of housing they're talking about. This is the amount of commercial, because keep in mind, I think the current plan has 300,000 square feet of office space, which probably in today's environment is a little, you know, and just so everybody knows, like, Carroll County develops out in a good year, not a COVID year, but in a normal year, 25,000 square feet of office space through the whole entire county. So if we've got 300,000 and 125,000 of retail, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this is going to take a really long time to absorb this amount of space, you know. But and hey, we got to keep thinking outside the box. I mean, to your point, I think anything we're thinking about and ideas we're coming up with, I mean, I'm hoping that we're all thinking outside of the box to come up with creative ways to make this happen and not limiting ourselves to anything that, you know, can happen. So I think there's a lot of possibilities there, and I think we're in a great spot. We got a great town, and I think we'll make it work. We just got to figure it all out, you know, what works with this developer, what they can build and make money, because that's what it's all about, is profit for them. And then for us, it's about what we want here in town for the long haul. So hopefully by January, I would expect to get some sort of plan out. I don't see them getting it done. I mean, we're heading up on Thanksgiving already, and then we're heading into the holidays. So I can't imagine getting it before Christmas time. So I would agree with Joe. I think we're probably looking at the first of the year before something happens. So any other questions on this one? And like those, and any updates we get, we are going to try to do a much better job of, and so we've been doing a pretty good job. We haven't had any updates. Like, I haven't gotten any, I mean, there hasn't been anything they've dropped on me, and we've not shared with you. So, but we'll make sure that whatever we're getting, you guys are getting, you know what I mean? So if something comes up, we'll share it with you right away and make sure everybody's in the loop. So, All right, our next item is the treasurer's report.
Good evening, everybody. How are we this evening? It's nice, another warm evening.
Yeah,
Great weekend.
beautiful.
At this time, I'd like to present the October treasurer's report. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, I was doing the September one. So 2 weeks later, I managed to get the October done for you guys. As I anticipated, we were going to get back in the black, and we did. We're about 243 ahead of budget right now, which is what I expected. Everything seemed to be pretty straightforward this month. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. I've already reconciled most of the accounts. They're pretty clean. So I would anticipate hopefully next month or two, we'll be starting getting to see some of the user highway revenue and potentially the income tax as well, to beef up the budget and keep it in the black for that time being. So that's what I'm hoping for. I don't know if anybody has any questions at this time. Like I said, it's pretty straightforward. Got it done in 4 days, I might add. That's probably a record. I never have a treasurer's report done this quickly. So, but it's getting to be cut and dry now. I'm getting to get the groove here. In terms of an update with the audit, we got back on track, although it still seems like I still have like a week or two of work to do. I think Joe and I are hoping we can get them to present the audit on the first, I guess, the meeting in December, which I guess was the 14th or whatever that date is. So we're hoping the audit will be completely done and they'll be able to give their report at that time frame. So if anyone's questioning or wondering what's going on, that's the status with the audit so far. So nothing really out of the ordinary, just a lot of work with the COVID that kind of slowed us up, and then of course my own learning curve, which has also slowed us up a little bit. So anyone have any questions at this time, or if not?
Questions for Craig? Okay, well, good job, Craig. I'm glad you're moving up. You're getting it rolling now. Good turn.
Yeah, clockwork.
Yes, that's awesome.
Motion to approve the October 2020 budget report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, great. Treasurer.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. All righty. Get my agenda back open here. All right, so public safety report. Chief, you're up.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We're going to talk about the public safety report covering the period October 19th through November 1st. Just a few highlights. We didn't have a huge month, 2 weeks in terms of total events, but a few of the highlights are, you can see 200 patrol checks. The guys are still being very diligent in the patrol checks, and you'll see later with some of these incident reports how those patrol checks are paying off once again. 29 traffic enforcement initiatives. I'm glad to see the school crossing details are starting to pick up now that the kids are back in school, at least part of the time. 23 foot patrols. With this nice weather, the officers are getting out and conducting a foot patrol, and it's always something that I've asked that they do, get out of the cars when they can and be a visible presence in the community. So all in all, very satisfied with the performance, and again, a total of 333 events for that roughly 2 week period. Moving on to you'll see on pages 2 and 3, there was a total of 19 incident reports during this period, most of which, as you can see, involve thefts of campaign signs. Thank goodness the election is over, or at least I believe it is, as well as a number of trespassing incidents at Warfield. I know you were going to have questions about why there was so many, and that's solely due to the fact that Officer Kirkner took the time to set up some surveillance cameras in the Warfield complex on his own, by himself, with very little help. I think actually Mark Onheiser helped him a little bit when Mark was still here. But we got the cameras up, and after the incident on the 26th of October, when Officer Kirkner noticed some damage, I believe it was, forget which building it was, but there was the initial report of damage in Warfield. That's when Officer Kirkner went to the surveillance camera and was able to pull off quite a few photographs of individuals that continue to trespass onto the property through the fence. And in some cases, I don't know if you saw some of the photographs which we posted on Facebook, but in some cases, you can see that they were carrying crowbars and backpacks and things of that nature, which very well could have been people breaking into some of these units. So to date, again, we've posted most of those photographs of the clear photographs, video stills on our Facebook page. But to date, we've received very few leads on the identity of any of the suspects that were trespassing onto the property. Any questions you may have about any of that? Be more than happy to entertain those.
So we haven't caught any of them yet, is what you're saying.
Not of these recent cases that were captured with the surveillance camera. No, none of those culprits have been identified or charged at this point in time.
Okay. At least they know who they're looking for now. So if they see them again.
Well, one would hope that now that their faces have been plastered all over Facebook, and we all know the value of social media and how that information travels and spreads, that at least it may be a deterrent to those individuals to come back, as well as a deterrent to others who think that they can enter onto their property without being seen or at least captured on surveillance security cameras. So, yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah, and that's a good job. Tell them thank you for that, because if anything we could do to get that. And then I saw one for the one at the apple butter. Is that did we get somebody there, or was that?
No, and actually we do have a surveillance camera there as well, but unfortunately it did not pick up any images of people. But in that particular case, I think some plywood was removed from. There was actually two cases at the apple butter. There was some graffiti, as well as a piece of plywood that was removed from, I believe, a door on the back, or excuse me, a window on the back of the building. It wasn't clear whether anybody had gained access into the building, but they, at the very least, they had removed plywood, which would lead us to believe that they were attempting to get into the building. But no suspects in those cases either. And again, all of this damage is being discovered by our officers who are diligently doing patrol and noticing these things. You know, once in a while it's nice to get lucky and actually catch them in the act, but that's you know, a very rare circumstance to occur. But at least I know they're doing their job, and they're checking these places regularly, and once damage is observed, they're reporting it. And you know, with the help of Facebook and Ring Neighborhood app, we can hopefully get this information out and help us solve some of these cases.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yep. Thanks. I'm sure we're gonna get lucky sooner or later.
Well,
yep,
it does happen. Yeah, we've caught them before in the act, so it's just a matter of timing. Good timing on our part and poor timing on their part, right?
Yeah. Yep. No. Unfortunately, I don't think most of these things are well thought out. They just happen. So we'll see what happens. I hope.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but thanks for the efforts. I appreciate that. Trying to round these things.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Oh, and I did want to say that I did make Steve McLeaf aware of the gap in the fence, and he, as well as forwarded him many of the pictures showing people gaining access into that area. And he said that he was going to check with the fencing contractor and get those gaps fixed so that somebody can't squeeze through those gaps in the fencing. So I did have Jason check tonight. He's working right now, and he says they have not yet been fixed. So we will continue to follow up and see that he does that.
Great. All right. Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Any questions for the Chief? Okay. All right. Next item is the council committee reports. I guess so. Anna, you're at the top of my screen. We're going to start with HDC tonight.
All right, I was just getting my notes here. So we had a meeting on, let me get there. On Tuesday, October 27th, we had 4 applications. The first one was application for 7323 Springfield Avenue for a roof replacement. We approved that with architectural shingles that are HDC approved. Second one was to make repairs. It's redoing the exterior siding at 7552 Rear Main Street. That's the little outbuilding behind Cowboys and Angels. The owner was replacing the old siding and he had noticed that there was damage, so he had to repair that along with replacing the siding. So we approved that. Then we had a discussion on brick colors for the Warfield townhomes. There was originally 2 types of bricks that were approved. The manufacturer discontinued one of them. And thank you, Stacy, for some questions. We did ask that if the manufacturer just renamed it, but in fact, the manufacturer just totally discontinued it. So the developer went ahead, or the builder went ahead and left the samples out over the weekend so we all could take a look and compare it to the historical buildings along with the current townhomes, and we approved one of the options. It's very similar to the historical bricks. So that was
Great.
And then the last one was a temporary sign. There was approval for a neon sign for some of the businesses due to the COVID and limited store hours. So some of the businesses wanted to have some type of neon sign to let the businesses know that they were open. So that was ongoing. And then once all the businesses were open, we decided that that was no longer needed. So we had advised that neon signs are no longer needed, and we are not any longer allowing those. And the next meeting is going to be on November 17th, Tuesday, via Zoom. It's 6 o'clock versus 7 o'clock. And we so far have 2 applications.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. Al, your next business.
The business, the merchants met October 27th, Friday. The big scuttlebutt was the Willy Wonka night, which was November 6th. There was a lot of talk about that. That was one of their first Friday events. They talked a little bit more about working with the DSC and how things have kind of changed a little bit because the merchants aren't doing many events on their own. They're kind of handing over to the DSC. And maybe we could talk offline, Mr. Mayor, and see if you want me to continue in this role, just because there seems to be less Main Street or less town input maybe is needed, but we could talk about that offline. Next meeting is the Friday before Black Friday. I don't want to goof up the date here. November 20th.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. All right. We'll talk about it and see what the best way to go forward is.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to keep the lines of communication open with them, and I think that was the goal. So we'll just have to figure out. Maybe we'll talk.
I mean, if you want me to stay there, that's fine. But maybe we should just have a conversation about it. That's all.
Yeah, maybe we'll just figure out a different strategy too, and see what works good.
Yep.
All right, and then Jeremiah, you're next. Anything from Raincliff?
No, Mayor. No meetings have occurred, and nothing to report with the other things I'm involved with. Thanks.
Okay, you got it. Oh, and I did want to bring up real quick just before I forget, there is we're trying again for a virtual MML meeting on December 10th. So just wanted to throw that out there while I'm thinking about it. So mark your calendars. I think it's that Thursday, the 10th, and we'll get the link out to everybody. It's probably the same time. They're calling it a virtual MML dinner so bring your own food, I guess. But at least we'll get an update, and maybe you'll have some, thing from the school board or something for that meeting. I'm sure Neil will reach out. Okay, and then Stacy, you're up next. So,
Thank you, sir. This is brief. We have not met. The Spark committee has not met since prior to our last town council meeting. Our next meeting, though, is scheduled for November 19th. It'll be held via Zoom and also be done at 6 p.m. The only update I have with respect to Spark outside of the meeting update, a meeting announcement, is that as a result of our participation in the town cleanup through the grant opportunity offered through Keep Sykesville Beautiful, we plan to purchase with those grant funds, assuming that we are awarded them, the 2 new trash and recycling receptacles for our flagship park, Millard Cooper Park, as well as South Branch. And that'll give us an opportunity to make sure we're keeping litter off of the ground and in the proper locations and recycling when we can.
Okay, that's awesome. And then the next other big announcement is the skate park's open. Hallelujah.
Yes, the skate park's open. I guess I forgot. I've been out of town for a week, but there were about 64 children up there this afternoon on my way home from BWI. And
That's awesome. It's a little it's packed. So be safe if you're using the skate park.
Yes.
Please be safe. Wear a mask and don't put yourself at risk. But other than that, it's been highly successful. And the parking lot's pretty awesome looking. Everything turned out pretty good. So
did we get the zip line fixed?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Did the zip line get repaired, Mr. Mayor, after you used it?
It wasn't the mayor that broke it.
I know it wasn't. I'm just giving you a hard time.
We do hope to have the zip line repaired on Friday. That's when the contractor is supposed to be there. So I will keep you all up to speed. If it needs to get pushed out a little further, I will certainly let you know.
Thanks, Joe.
The zip line has been well received. I think we just need a heavier duty one. And we're going to put up some rules that say, like, I think how they broke was probably like 5 kids hanging on it. And, going down there because it lends itself to that. So
it was probably a double dog dare. How many kids can get on the zip line?
And unfortunately it hits that end. So we're gonna have to look at that. I think Joe said it talked about putting up a sign with these are the rules. And
yeah, we're investigating a good rule sign for the new playground to make sure people understand what that zip line can and cannot handle. Right. No adults using the zip.
So that's it. I'm canceled. But it said it was a 500-pound weight limit, but you can't put 6 kids on there that are 100 pounds. That's too much.
Yeah, kids are good at following rules especially when you post them.
Oh yeah,
that'll work out really good.
But that's when a patrol check will come in handy and be like, kids?
Deniability. Right.
Oh goodness.
All right. And then I did not have we did not have any new information from the gatehouse yet or the colored schoolhouse. Did you ever get all the stuff? Did all her things get taken care of, Joe? I did want to check up on that while
I think the only outstanding item is the flooring. There's a spot in the floor there in the schoolhouse that is that's starting to sag a little bit. The flooring's actually coming up pretty good in one spot. I think Derek's still working on finding the proper flooring so that we can match with what's there.
Okay. Yeah, just want to get that taken care of before COVID-19 gets out, so we don't have to work on it while the kids are back there. So
we'll delay the vaccine for a little bit longer until we fix the floor.
All right, I got you. All right, just putting it out there. Okay, and I think Leo is out tonight, so I think that's it, right? Am I missing anybody on the bottom of the screen? Hold on.
I think Mark Dyer has yet to provide us with his
there
planning
you
commission.
go. Mark popped in. There you go. You weren't on my view side. Thanks, Mark.
That's okay. We had a meeting of the planning commission on 2020-11-02. We didn't actually have any citizen requests, but we did have an update from the county. Claire Stewart came in. She mentioned that there's a water and sewer plan update, a subject near and dear to our heart. Also mentioned the comprehensive plan is still being worked for them as well. The Vogel property received an unfavorable reading. And there are going to be 3 work sessions coming up for the county for their comprehensive plan about listening and public session for that. There is some requests of a residential nature. None are in our town, but they wanted us to be aware of that. Let's see, somebody named Joe from Sykesville came in, gave an update on the comprehensive plan, mentioned the meetings we had last week, and the great work the staff did in trying to get public participation. They had an interesting fact, I think. They had 400 surveys, roughly. Ironically, 45% of them were in-town residents and 55% were outside the town. I found that interesting. And they mentioned there'll be a December virtual town hall. There was no October advisory committee, but there was a discussion about a possible November 12th advisory committee meeting. I don't have specifics because I haven't received them yet. I was hoping that Joe Guy might give us some better information when it's his turn. We did talk about Warfield briefly, and we had similar concerns that have been expressed earlier in the meeting, so I won't belabor them. Let's see here. And they did talk about some other changes that may be an annexation might be needed, but again, no petition has been received. We did talk about the Firehouse Creamery sidewalk and what a joy that is, and that the South Branch Park is open. Let's see, lastly, some changes to Fairhaven, even though most of those changes requested are not in our town, they graciously keep us informed, so we're aware of them. Most of them will be minor grading work, and doesn't seem like it's a problem. So we're very optimistic about that. I don't know of any meetings scheduled for December because I haven't been told if anything has come in. And lastly, gee, I was hoping to do some zip lining myself, but I hear it's offline for kids. I'll just have to bear up under the pain. That's it.
I have a quick question for you, Mark. You had mentioned there might be a petition put in or an application for something that would require annexation. Whereabouts is that property?
That would be down by Schoolhouse Road. That's come up before.
It's one of those, it's that property it's an interesting little area back there in that there's several properties involved that are partly in town and partly outside of town, and how that actually occurs, I really can't explain it. But as part of this, proposal for building a few more houses on the largest parcel back there, we want to clean up that entire area and get the whole section annexed in. So they're working on that petition now, and again, hopefully we see that here in the next 30 to 45 days.
Questions about specificity is not in abundance.
Joe,
Great.
with regards to that little triangle piece that I believe that you're talking about, I thought several years ago that we were having our town attorney, look into annexing that because that was like an overlook of some sort. Mayor or Stacy, do you remember that?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely something that's been come up because it definitely looks to me like it was like it was missed. It doesn't make any sense to have this little piece there. So, but whoever develops that'll have to be part of their process, is to get those residents will have to agree to be annexed. I think there might be a way to get them to do it, but yeah.
Again, I think that was my view when I first saw it as well, that it seemed to be more of a mapping error, but because it's been on the books like this for as long as it has, you still have to go through the process of annexation, even though, again, it makes all the sense in the world to that all of these parcels be in, but you still have to go through the process. So.
Right.
I would be curious though if it's even at all feasible. I mean, I know so many of our records are a click away on our town website with all of our archived documentation, but I mean, we can assume that it was an oversight, but there may actually have been some constituents way back when who had some representation at the council that might have wanted it that way. I have no idea, but before we go changing things up, maybe it's worthy a dive.
We've looked at it again.
Okay.
It was it's interesting because the parcels are split zoned the way they are is the biggest concern to me.
Okay.
But again, we were able to research back at least into the 40s with the county's help, and again, all of their maps show the exact same thing that our maps show. And
Okay.
yeah, so if it was an error, it was long before then.
Veterans of the Planning Commission did the same thing. They thought, why didn't we do this? We thought we did. This appears to be one of those, I thought it was your dog problems.
Yeah, and I think we talked about annexing it, but it was like cost prohibitive at the time. It was like and we had to have buy-in from all the property owners.
Yeah, so I think that's the key, is getting the people to but to whoever's going to develop it'll work on that. That'll be their mission to get that achieved.
And Mayor, I know you had, I think we're done then with everybody, but you had mentioned Leo is not here. If I could, just on behalf of his liaison position and his absenteeism here this evening, I just want to remind everybody and also thank anyone who's already donated to the Happy-thon. So just a gentle reminder and a gentle encouragement for anyone listening that 100% of your donations will, if you choose to donate for the 2020 program, will go directly to the fulfilling of the wishes on the wish list for the kiddos at Piney Ridge Elementary, our Sykesville residents, and sometimes that they've got older siblings, and all of those times that there are older siblings involved, enough has been raised, enough donations have been collected to at least provide even the older siblings with a gift or a gift card to a location of their choosing. So just something to, a feather in your caps. And thank you to those on the council who have already donated.
I'd like to just chime in. I had the opportunity to participate with not last year, but many years prior to that. And it's very heartfelt. It's sad to see as many families in our community that are not capable of providing a good Christmas. And the children are so appreciative that it just brings tears to my eyes. It's a wonderful program.
Thank you for saying, Anna. That is so true.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the deadline so everybody knows? How long do you have?
Well, I also should have said how a donation is made possible. So we'll do both. So your support has bettered the lives of many around us over the past years, and we're grateful for it. If you are able to contribute to the 2020 program, please consider donating using the donate button on the Downtown Sykesville Connections webpage and Facebook page, and or you can send a check to the Downtown Sykesville Connection at 7307 Spout Hill Road. And the deadline for that is a very good question. I'm going to assume that that's going to run through November at least, and I will find out for sure, and I'll have that ready for you guys next meeting, or Leo will.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, just want to let people know.
No, it's a good question.
Last minute all the time. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then,
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for picking up on that. All righty. So I think we've got everybody now, right? We got everybody. Nobody's at the bottom. Yeah. So we're all good. Anything else? Any other comments, Joe, or we all good?
We're all good. I just want to say there is an advisory committee meeting this Thursday. Once the documents are available, I will make sure the council receives all of them.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So with all that out of the way, I think we are ready to make a motion to adjourn.
You do it. I'll do it. Anybody want to do it? I'll second it.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Right.
Second.
I just
All those in favor?
did we do the proclamation?
Aye.
What's that, Mark?
Did we do the proclamation?
That was on the consent agenda.
Right, it was done properly, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, we'll need to get signatures on it, I guess, somehow, but we'll figure that out.
We've
Everybody.
been forging your all signatures for a long time now, so don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, all right. So there you go. It'll all be handled. All right.
I submitted my stamp back in March, didn't you guys?
Oh, geez. There you go. No, I did not. No, I come and still sign. So submit
Very
your
good.
stamp.
Very good.
All right.
All right. So the motion was seconded, I think, by
Yes, and I think everybody said they were all in favor. So
Aye.
we will adjourn. Thank you all for participating, and I will talk to y'all soon.
Thanks, ladies and
Have a
gents.
good night.
Thank you all.
You too.
Have a good night, everyone.